I'm unbelievably passionate about people finding more optimistic, practical friends.
You shift your friends, you will shift your life. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how to do it.
I'm most calm when there's the most chaos because I go into a place in my mind of like, what's the worst that can happen?
Rise and shine, it's espresso time. Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I am not a morning person, I'm not. But when you start your day off with a routine that inspires you, like watching one of these videos, it will change your life. So let's start your day off right together. Grab your coffee, know that I believe in you, and get ready for a shot of espresso with Gary Vaynerchuk.
I wake up every morning. Espresso keep me going. I wake up every morning.
I believe one of the great ways to mix things up is what you listen to and who you surround yourself with. I'm unbelievably passionate about people finding more optimistic, practical friends. And I think optimism can slide into delusion, which is why I say optimistical, practical. You know, it's funny, as you were talking about minimalism, like it's so interesting that you're the first person to ever say it to me that I can recall, and it feels very real to me. Like I don't have outside things kind of driving me, and that's what leads me to a lot of happiness. And so I would say auditing your circle. Like if somebody wants a meaningful life, live a meaningful life, just get happier. I think the people that you spend your time with is a big one. The amount of people listening right now who've got a mother who's super pessimistic and cynical, but they love their mother, and they don't realize that cutting down their time from 7 hours a week of engagement with their mother to 2, and adding, like going out of their way to seeing the person that's always smiling in the office and trying to spark up a friendship and become friends with that person, and cutting up that 7 hours a week from mom to 2 to mom, maybe 30 minutes with that person, and maybe reallocating the other hours to themselves or other things is a massive deal. It's a massive deal.
You are not further ahead with your dreams because of who you're hanging out with. I said it. You're not further ahead. You're not accomplishing your goals, your mission, your dreams, the things you know you're capable of, because your circle is keeping you where you are. You've heard the expression, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's true. For business, for happiness, for health habits, for all of it. You are your environment. And as much as we try to change it, as much as we try to muscle through it, the more we can actually change our environment. If you want to make a big shift, you want to actually change your habits, your beliefs, your mindsets, your momentum, your energy, your confidence going forward. You want to make that shift, you change your environment. You start to shift who you start hanging out with. You shift your friends, you will shift your life. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how to do it. So I remember doing one of my first big YouTube events where it was a private invite only. People had to have at least 300,000 subscribers on their channel to be invited to go there. And I remember sitting down with somebody over dinner, and these things always make me feel super awkward, and I'm introverted and shy and don't like, networking. And so I decided I'm gonna go to dinner with this person. They invited me. It's like, okay, fight the feeling, and instead of just going to your hotel room and doing work, this is why you're here. Let's go, Evan. Go and do it and say hi. And what's the worst that's gonna happen? So I'm at dinner with this guy, and he's got a successful channel. And over dinner, we're pushing each other. He says one of the things he admires the most about me is how consistent I am on the content. It's like, yeah, man, I haven't missed uploading a video in years. We've done over 10,000 videos on the main channel. Almost 11,000 now. Not all of them are public, but it's a crazy number of videos that we do. I am very consistent, and I have my team who's awesome as well, who helps me do it, but we are consistent. We don't miss videos. And he was missing videos all the time. If he didn't feel it, he didn't do it. He started and stopped and started and stopped. And so I encouraged him to make more videos. At the same time, we're talking about health. And on my side, my health was not great when I traveled. I used it as a reason to eat whatever I wanted. It's like, okay, well, I'll gain a few pounds, be a little unhealthy, but when I come back to Toronto, it'll be fine. I'll get back on the horse. And so when I went to dinner, I'm eating pasta or pizza or dessert or candy bars or whatever's in front of me. It's like, it's my time to do what I want to do. And he's there, he's eating salmon, no dressing, salads, like super clean. And he's waking up the next day, first thing to go on a long run, where for me, I wasn't working out at all. I don't work out at all typically when I'm traveling. Here's what I know what happened. This is why environment is so important. If we started hanging out more together, let's create a magical world where he moved in with me or I moved in with him. Maybe that's not a magical world, but let's make this world where we're living with each other, spend a lot more time together. Here's what would happen. I would make him be more consistent on the content. Not by me telling him, hey man, you need to make more content. Hey man, not by me telling him what to do. Just by him being around me, he would want to make more content. Because I'm pulling him up. Because I have higher standards in that regard than he does. And by the same token, I would become more healthy. I would work out more. I would eat cleaner if I was hanging out with him more, because he has higher standards than I do in those areas. Whoever has the higher standards wins. Whoever is more confident wins. It's not that you have to coach somebody and tell them, hey, you need to go do XYZ. It will just naturally happen. If you're around really negative people, you're gonna become more negative. You're gonna have to fight that every day, because it's gonna be so easy for you to slip into negativity, because that's what's around you. And so whoever is more confident wins. That moment with him really helped me realize, oh, maybe I don't have to be unhealthy when I'm on the road. Right? Because everybody else that I hang out with, they're all doing the same thing too. It's like, yeah, I'll work out when I get home. Yeah, I want to enjoy this restaurant. I want to enjoy this food. And when I go home, then I'll take it back. But this guy, he had his health game dialed in. And hanging around with him would force that upon me. So how can you do it? How can you start to shift your circle, shift your environment to push you in the direction that you want? Step number 1 is stop hanging out as much time with the people who are causing you negativity. And it's not that they're bad people. It's not to throw them under the bus and say they're haters. They're just bad people, and I don't want them in my life anymore, right? They're not bad people. They might be in a lot of pain. They might have low standards in some things, but they're not bad people. What you want to do is think about all the people in your life. Think about who you spend especially the most time with, and how do you feel after you spend time with them? When you're hanging out with somebody, a friend, a relative, a parent, a spouse, that's a big one for sure. When you're hanging out with them and you're talking to them, how do you feel about yourself afterwards? Like when you leave them, when you go back home, how do you feel? Do you feel energized? Do you feel uplifted? Do you feel more confident? Do you feel more bold? Do you feel more excited? Or do you feel worse about yourself? Do you feel stressed? Do you feel depleted? Do you feel like you just gave so much and you got nothing back? Do you feel like you just had to fight for yourself all the time? Like, pay attention to your energy. Most people take our energy. Most people don't give us energy. Most people don't leave where we feel energized, right? So the people who make you feel negative, people who make you feel drained or stressed, just try to spend less time with them. If they're friends from high school, well, maybe you shouldn't be friends with them anymore, right? I mean, I think we stay in friendships out of convenience. It doesn't mean you drop them and say, I'm better than you, I never want to see you again. Just stop spending as much time with them. If it's your parents or family members, again, just stop spending as much time with them, or don't talk about some things that you know are going to cause a negative path. If it's your spouse, that's a tough one, because if you're with somebody or you're dating somebody who doesn't support your dreams, who makes you feel less than, who causes you stress, then you either have to fix the communication problem here, the gap, or move on to somebody else who's going to support you, because that is, that's the family you choose. So you have to choose carefully. But for the most part, there are people around us. And so you stop spending time with the people who make you feel worse about yourself when you spend time with them, period. Same thing on social media. If you're going through your Instagram or you're going through your YouTube, there's some creators who make you feel worse about yourself. Not that they're saying you suck, but when you look at them, when you watch their stuff, it makes you feel worse. Great, unfollow them. And there's some who make you feel better. Follow more of those people, right? Hopefully I'm one of the ones who make you feel better. But if not, if I make you feel worse every time you see me, great, unfollow me and go follow somebody else. It's really, really, really important to cut out those people from your life. Step number 2 is, now we need to fill it with more positivity. We've created a void. We still need to belong. Every human, even me, I'm introverted, shy. I don't have a big human quotient where I need to be around a lot of people. But even me, I need social interaction. So choose to fill it with more positivity. Choose to fill it with humans in your life, with people who you can hang out with, but also virtual videos like this. and other channels and other creators who are making content. I like to collect good people. It's a phrase I have, collect good people. I want to collect good people. When I find somebody that I like, I force myself to try to find a way to spend more time with them. I messaged somebody today who I want to spend more time with. I just sent them a message of love. I was thinking about them. I wanted to spend more time with them. So I sent out that message. It feels weird because it doesn't make sense. You know, somebody who you haven't spent a lot of time with, but you have a ton of connection and energy and you just feel so much better. When you did that audit of the people who are in your life, who are the ones who make you feel way better about yourself? That when you leave a coffee with them, maybe you spent 2 hours with them and you left with more energy than when you came in. Those kinds of people, you want to try to find more ways to spend time with them. Whether that's something structured, like you meet once a month or once a week to have coffee, whether that's doing some kind of business together, whether that's joining some kind of group together, but you're fighting, you're looking, you're creatively trying to find ways to spend more time with them. Get into the practice of collecting good people. As soon as you find yourself leaving somebody with more energy than what you came in with, immediately try to find a way to do that again. And then to make it part of your schedule, part of your structure, that you're spending more time with this person. And then step number 3 is find a community to join. When you can be around other people that you are not always having to be the person to lift them up, it's fantastic. You know, if you're watching this, you're probably the person lifting all the people up around you, and that's great, and that's service, and that's amazing. And you need people to lift you up. And I discount community, I think, a lot because I'm so introverted that I don't need a lot of community, so it's not my go-to place. But a lot of people need community. Very much. And I look at my Movement Makers program as an example. And in Movement Makers, it started off, Movement Makers is my training. Twice a month we meet for 85 minutes, helping people become thought leaders, get their message out there, build a business around serving and helping. And at the beginning of the training, it was me just training. It was me doing a PowerPoint and like, here's the information that you need to know. Here are the tactics. Here's what you need to go. Boom, 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 boom. And what I realized was people got a lot of great information and people got connected to me, which was fantastic. But I'm only talking to them every 2 weeks. Movement Makers every 2 weeks. What I wanted to do was connect people to each other in the groups. And I was doing that when I could think of it. Like, oh, Sheila should meet Julie. I think they could have something together. I think maybe they could do a show together or a joint venture, or they could help each other out somehow. I've got a feeling. And I would make those connections and they would often work out. But it still relied on me to make those connections for people. Where I realized, hey, if I just got them to know each other, then they could form their own connections. And so we incorporated breakout rooms into the sessions where for 15 to 20 minutes, close to the end of each session, we put people into groups of 5 to 7 people, and you share, what did you learn from the session so far? What's your action plan for the next week? And in doing that, people make connections to meet other people who are like them, right? It's like you get to meet other people who are like you and support each other. And finally, you're not the only crazy person who's trying to do something. You got other crazy, amazing people alongside with you. And people are doing businesses together now. People are doing shows together now. People are going live on Instagram together now. People are supporting each other now. Now when people post, they have friends supporting them and commenting. And it's just creates this family atmosphere, which gives you positive momentum. It's giving people positive momentum, because when you feel like you're not alone in those dark moments, in those moments of doubt, in those moments of insecurities, in those moments when you feel like nothing's happening, you have somebody, or not even one person, you got a group of people to support you, cheer you on, say you can do this, a place where you can be vulnerable, open, know that you're going to be accepted and not judged for who you are. To find that community, whether it's Movement Makers with me, it's great, but if not, there's tons of communities. Find the community where you feel accepted, where you feel a sense of belonging, where you feel like you found your tribe, where you feel like you get the push that you need, the inspiration you need to go chase down your dreams again. Because it's probably not your friends that you went to high school with. It's probably not your parents. It's probably not the people who are around you right now. The fastest way to level up is to be around people who are leveling up. And it's amazing, and it's great service to help level other people up, because when you learn and grow, you want to help the people around you. You want to help your family get better and your friends get better. Awesome. Keep doing that. That's your service work. But you need people to help push you. You can be great. You've got a great soul. You've got a great heart. You know that what's in here could be so valuable to the world, so valuable to the world, could make you a lot of money and have a giant impact on the people around you. You know that that's possible. The difference is you don't have the environment of people who are making you feel that that's possible consistently. You don't have a family around you, a family that you choose around you, helping push you forward in a direction that can make all the difference. When you start to change your environment, you start to change your life. And I hope you make a commitment today to make that a reality. Now I've got a special bonus clip that I think you're gonna enjoy, but before that, it's time for the question of the day. I wanna know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? When you just get inspired, you watch a video, you get motivated, amazing. The science says you have a 35% chance of actually doing something, actually following through. That, Believe Nation, is not enough. That is not you, not now, not anymore, not today. But when you get inspired and then you create a specific plan of action for what you're gonna do, that number jumps to 91% chance of you following through. And when you commit publicly to others, like leaving a comment in this video, it jumps to 95%. So the question of the day is your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week. Put it down in the comments below, and maybe next week I'll profile you. Also, if you want to have more self-confidence and self-belief, I've designed a special free training to help you do it. The science says it can take up to 254 days of consecutive action to build a new habit. And I want that for you. I want you to build the habit of self-belief. So what I'm gonna do is email you every day for 254 days, a link to an unlisted video that will shift your belief forward. To get on it for free, the link to join is in the description below.
The reason people aren't patient is they value other people's opinions too much. I think everybody here, if I told them everything is gonna be okay, you can have everything you want, now what are you gonna do with your day? I think a lot of people know. I always choose positivity. I look at other people around me. It's not just about me that are winning. They choose positivity. I look at the people around me that are not winning, that are not progressing, that are not advancing. They're choosing negativity. I started the agency with 45 people that didn't work in the industry. I knew nothing about the industry. I read nothing about the industry. So I started VaynerMedia. I built a creative shop that I put media in the name. I had both media and creative under one roof and had no idea that it was unique. So we were doing all these unusual things. What it led to is a very large agency that has not played by the industry rules, but has driven business results for its clients. So now we do have 900 people globally. We do have the US, LA and New York offices, and London, and opening up Singapore, and very frankly, feel very confident we're about to get a big scope for the World Cup in Qatar, and that means Middle East, and looking at, South America. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I think because of some of the awards we're winning this week, just I'm feeling from the creative class here a little bit of more of a, okay, you can be in the club, and I'm laughing. I'm like, I don't want to be in the club. I don't mind to be in the club, but there's only one club I wanna be in, which is, wouldn't you want to be a creative that in real life, when you hang out with your friends, people know what you're talking about? Like, how many more times do people here want to spend 20 years of their life making TVC that when they talk about it, and they're like, the IBM spot, and their friends and relatives are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And if they do, it's because they tried really hard to find it, right? I think that people want to, I think if you're creative, I think you want it to be seen. I just don't know what else to say. And I think, what Mike and Adam will tell you if you decide to yap with them after this is, after having careers in fancy places doing fancy stuff, it's fun to make. Think about all the ideas that you guys have had that will never see the day of life. Like, you guys are all 12 years away, 6 years away, 4 years away from being the final decision maker to actually see something made. Right now, you're politicking and strategizing on how to convince the two people above you to actually make the thing you believe in. You're not in the creative industry, you're in the internal politicking industry. That's why volume will set this industry free. We have interns from day one in ad school being able to see their thoughts in market from the biggest brands in the world. Literally, we have literally interns already in our company that have had more pieces of content seen by humans than some of the people here. That's real. That's going to play out, I hope, for all of you. I want you to be in a place where you get to be creative for real, instead of working at a bank and fighting for a half-pregnant version of your idea to see the world. And that's why so many of you have to do things on the side, because you can't scratch your itch. When are you gonna start talking? What are you waiting for? If you are not communicating, you don't exist. I believe that. If you are not communicating, you do not exist. More importantly, communicate about what you love. What scares me about the long tail of the internet is I know there's somebody sitting in here who's watched every episode of Friends, okay? Deeply loves Friends. Can't get enough in their own mind of debating Rachel and Ross. Loved the show. Watch it every night to go to sleep to. And I know they make $49, $62, $88, $103,000 a year doing something they don't like. And I know that if they started a podcast about Friends every day when they went home, instead of consuming content to escape the fact that they don't like their job, if they created content around the thing they love, that after 24, 36, 48 months, that along could have came Netflix and been a sponsor of that podcast that would allow them to actually leave that job they hate and now be a full-time Friends podcaster. You don't believe that. I understand that. That seems like a far-fetched story to you. The problem is you don't live my life, because I wrote a book in 2009 called Crush It that laid this out, and I get to live the best life now where I get 3 to 6 emails a day of people that tell me this exact story. Whether it's about pickles. People like pickles. I do too. I eat pickles like crazy. Star Trek. Esports, don't even get me started, because I used to push it a lot and people have gone completely and made real careers in that. Just stuff. I just really, really, really hope you hear me today. There's a really dirty secret in the strategy world of like Bain and McKinsey, where if you really get them drunk, they admit that the actions lead to the strategy, not the other way around. That's my answer to you. How? I make decisions. And then I try to look at my calendar the week ahead and see if any decisions I made 4 weeks earlier that made me think this was a good use of time. Am I able to move something, cut something down? I'm extremely thoughtful about cutting times of meetings. So one of the things I think that really make me successful is understanding a 7-minute meeting is real, and not just making it a 30-minute meeting. But the real reason is because I don't overthink it. I'm operating my business, I'm in it. How do I decide between going to dinner with Kevin Hart because I can and I want to build top of the funnel brand, or do I go take a mid-level client that I'm trying to build a relationship with? It's, you ask every normal person, it seems like those aren't super close, but I can touch the pulse and be like, I'm going to LA 4 more times in the next 3 months. The biggest mistakes I make are the ones of missed opportunities of the things by being crippled by opportunity. When you actually level that all up, my friend, it really is liberating. You will never even come close to making the right decision. I mean it. You just don't know what the alternative would be. People think that there's a right answer. You as an operator of your business, make the right call that feels right at that moment and just move. And people spend all this time and money on trying to think that there's a proper answer. I play on the extremes. I spend as much time as possible on the things that are showing me the most offense, right? However you're doing your customer acquisition to get to a hundo on a product like that, like whether it's Facebook, whether it's brand, and then I spend the amount of time on my biggest vulnerability. Putting my finger in the holes to make sure the boat doesn't sink, and building a bigger boat and nothing in the middle. And knowing that I'm making that judgment at all times, and the second I get new data a week later, I might have to completely change what I thought was right the week before. It's also why I spend a ton of time with my employees. The reason I'm an HR-driven CEO is if you really understand this, both your biggest growth and your biggest vulnerabilities are actually your own team. So I think it's it starts with the ability not to overjudge yourself, because that is the liberator of the model I just broke down for you. I forced somebody to leave the media team and now work in project management, a very junior employee. She's been with us for 18, 24 months. I, from the tippy top, all the way down to the London office on the micro media team, demanded, as a dictator, to move her from media to project management on two things. One, she was not having a good relationship with her managers, and it was neither of their faults after I investigated personally. And two, through the series of her communicating with me, I thought that she had tremendous organizational skills. And I saw her yesterday and she was so happy. I'm a CEO who happens to also have tens of millions of followers on social media, does public speaking, am here for things like this. I'm stretched incredibly thin, and yet I was able to execute against that. And this is not me saying it for everybody who's listening to think I'm good or whatever. It speaks to intent. Either, let me save everybody a lot of time on this incredible mission that this podcast is on. Either a company is about its people or a company is about money. Any company that is publicly traded or has a board that has control over the CEO, she or he has to pander to something outside of their employees. Independence, whether in the micro or at massive scale, at least gives you the chance to be employee-centric.
So how did you communicate that to her, and how did she receive it?
Well, it was in the conversations I was having to her about her not being happy, and then also double checking and hearing from her managers that maybe it's her fault, was data I was collecting. And then I came over the top with HR and finance and just requested the move. So I didn't even communicate to her that I was doing the move. It just happened. When I saw her, I'm not sure she knows how much or how little I had to do with it. And I'm not really in the business of getting stars on my shirt, but I'm really happy about it. And whether it works out or not, I have no idea. But the moral of the story for everybody, one more time, especially if you're listening right now and you have the power. You know, something I said yesterday to the London office was everything at VaynerMedia is my fault. There's 1,000 things wrong right now. There's 8 to 80 people that are responsible for that, but at the end of the day, I hired and empowered those 8 to 80. If you are lucky enough to have control, and you're listening right now, and if you're listening to this, you care about the things that we care about, please look yourself in the mirror and realize you're the one that has the ability to make the change that you ideologically believe in. You know, my failures are funny because I'm an immigrant, so I've always got I never do that's like gonna put me totally out of business. I always got a nest egg. I'm always on like 3rd and a half bait. Like I'm never doing something that's like over the edge, and if this up, it's like, you know? My biggest mistakes have been the things I haven't done. I referenced it real quick. If you go read my first book in 2008, Crush It, 2008, I thank my family and one random person, Travis Kalkinick, who went on to start Uber, who used to, when me and AJ started VaynerMedia, used to fly around like in Vegas and just hang out with us because he had no job. He was in between. Starts Uber. I'm investing like crazy on everything. He asked me to invest in Uber twice, and I said no. Because I just bought an apartment, I was a little less liquid. I thought it was a side project for him. I also thought Uber was like a rich man's game. Like it was originally like a limo on your phone. So I was like, you know, how big is that gonna be? And I passed twice. We got in a little bit later, you know, so we did all right. But I mean, if I wrote my normal $50,000, $25,000 check, I probably left in the ballpark of 300 to 800 million on the table. So that's an L. And on some real, like, I don't even feel it, because what I've started to really learn about myself in the last year or so is I'm about the process, not the trophies. I'm just about the process. I love my game. I love my game so much. I want to win. I'd like to have that W, but money's funny, right? Like anybody who doesn't have it thinks it's the key to happiness, and they're super confused, and then they say, well, easy for you to say you have it. And I was like, yo, I didn't have it for a long ass time. I lived in the villas in Springfield Avenue in Springfield in an apartment until I was 28, buying nothing, making 40, 50,000 a year, working 90 hours a week in a liquor store, so I've tasted both. So I made a lot of mistakes. I pass on all sorts of, I just don't know what the mistakes are because I say no so much because I'm so busy. What if that one meeting was with, you know? Make a lot of mistakes.
So for someone like myself who like wants to go into entrepreneurship ultimately and like start a business, like I'm interested in several areas like media, emerging tech, all that, but I don't really know like which specific thing I want to do. Would you say to like start at like some company first and then kind of figure it out from there, or just like kind of go?
How do you learn?
I think mostly by doing.
So then don't go to a company.
But I feel like there's a lot of like, I guess pressure in a sense to like, you know, go.
You can stop this sentence right there. You know that you learned that way, but you're gonna do something else based on somebody else.
Yeah, well, makes sense.
That's what everyone's doing, bro. And so everyone's sitting around and trying to figure out why all these young people are so upset. It's because of all this. Because they were over-coddled by a generation of over-coddling parents, and they don't know how to do their own. And I think they can do tons and believe you can do so much as long as you tune out. Are you in a place where you're comfortable to do what I lived through? I lived it. I lived a world where, now I'm me, but 26-year-old me was ringing up my friends from high school at my dad's liquor store when they rolled in with their BMW because they went to a good school and started working at Goldman Sachs and could afford one, or not really, but they wanted to look like they could, and they were buying a case of Moet Chandon, and I was ringing it up for them, and this is real stories now, and carrying the case to their car and putting it in their trunk. I walked in feeling fulfilled because I was happy I made a sale. They were leaving there feeling unbelievable because Gary's bringing out my case. The problem was that was just when we were 26. Now that we're 43, it's real different. I just had the internal strength to deal with that scenario. 99% of you aren't. I think that people need to try to be self-aware about what makes them happy and doesn't make them happy. Right now, I view social media as a mirror. I think what people are putting out is an incredible indicator of what's inside of them. So right now there's a lot of political anxiety. There's a lot of ideological anxiety. And so what we're seeing is a lot of judgment. I think, the early days, especially when you and I were on it, like there was a lot of Nirvana early users. It was very soft. I think you are seeing a different version of that today, but that is, getting off of social is no different than stop watching CNN or Fox every night or reading the Journal or the Times. We consume as animals. And I think if one feels overwhelmed, they should stop consuming. But I don't put social media consumption in a very different place than the films and music and books that one reads. Like, the collective replies of people's angst is no different than Kurt Cobain's singular angst, other than it's a collective versus a singular. And so I think it's great. And like when people are like, oh, like what are you gonna think about that? I'm like, I don't care about social media. I really don't. I care about humans communicating with each other. I'm fascinated by communication, and I'm fascinated that we now have a collective ability to communicate at a scale that we've never seen before. And I think right now people are focusing on the downside of that, and I think we're forgetting the upside of it. There's so much love and greatness going on every day. I think humans find what they're looking for. If you're signing into Twitter to find a fight, or to find somebody to fight with, or to see some negativity, you're gonna find it. I think if you go to Twitter or Instagram to find happiness and positivity, it's there at scale. I think that this company is a complete and utter reflection of the way I was parented and the circumstances in which I was parented, 100%. I think that this company is optimistically practical. So And that's uniquely what I can bring to the table in this company. So this company is extremely young and coastal, which means it's unbelievably socially liberal, which is incredible because I am as well, but that also leads to vulnerability. And so my practicality and immigrant upbringing and like merit-based infrastructure helps us a lot when the most senior leaders do things that are currently popular but are unbelievably scary to me of what that could lead to a month later. I mean, Slack at VaynerMedia is like dark Reddit. Like, you know, like there's a lot of good, but there's plenty of dark. And like, that's just the nature of what happens, especially when what's happening outside the four walls of VaynerMedia is happening in our society, which is activating people in a completely different way than a decade ago, or 2 decades ago, or 2 decades from today. And so, yes, I feel like I'm very fortunate to be the human that I am during this time, because I think I have practical optimism.
So one of my favorite Gary V answers was when asked what you would do if your daughter, when she turns 14, goes into her room and is filming all her videos and nobody likes it, and she comes out and says, "Nobody in this world loves me," and your answer was, "Step your game up," I believe was the answer. Tell us about that.
The market is the market, man. Like, you know, if nobody's watching your stuff, like, it's not good enough. Like, everybody thinks their stuff is so good. Like, every day, Gary, my Instagram's so on fire, it's so awesome. Why is nobody, like, why am I not gaining followers? 'Cause it's not awesome. Like, of course, like, it's just back to the same, like, you've seen it. You all have friends who be like, "Look how cute my kid is," and you're like, "Ugh." You know, like, it's what we think. We all think our stuff is the best, and like, I get that. But yeah, that would be my advice, only because that also is liberating. Like to me, everything's about breathing, right? Like, to me, everything is about like, take full ownership for everything, and then everything gets easy, because then you're in control. And then learn how to love to lose. Like, for me, my game's simple, right? It's all my fault. So now, I'm not mad at Lindsay or D-Rock, or that's it, my fault. I'm empowering them. So it's actually true. My fault. Now, oh, we lost this, or this didn't deliver, or we all right, it's an L. Like, everybody's got losses. You know, it's funny, when UFC started getting popular, I started using it to paint the picture. I'm like, look, business and entrepreneurship is much more UFC than it is boxing. In boxing, a loss is devastating. Like, you know, if you ever, you know, I'm a big boxing fan, like most big fights, like the big fights through the year, almost, it's just unbelievable amounts of 33-0 versus 35-0, right? Just like, that's like what you do. You don't fight anybody, and you get to that level. Everybody's got losses in the UFC. And so I think that's how entrepreneurship, that's how life is. We all have losses. And so I like losses. I love adversity. I like the climb. I like the chip on my shoulder. I like when people are like, "Oh, I knew it. He's not that good." That is like I'm even weirdly scared as I continue to ascend and I'm getting popular, and what did you say? The marketing leading, like, as people start putting these words in front of my name, I'm like, am I gonna sabotage myself to like recorrect this? Like, I like adversity. So yeah, all on me. You know, I enjoy losses. Now all of a sudden, like, what? You become completely invincible. I feel invincible. I really genuinely, outside of the health of myself and 20 people, feel 100% invincible as a person. The things we said no to that were actually the trigger to a hotter, to a streak, to a heater, that we said, I hope that heaven is where it shows you what life would have been based on choices. I love that I didn't go to some night where at night would have been these 2 people that would have made this deal with me. Like, I love knowing that like momentum is based on choice, that I've missed momentum many times in my life, and that I've gotten momentum many times in my life. And I love that part of the game, actually, which is like, decisions actually matter. And sometimes when you have the humility to go to a thing that doesn't seem right, you get something that triggers a domino. And sometimes when you go to something, you're like, I mean, I remember sitting down, there's one meeting I remember very vividly with Howard Schultz. I had a meeting with Howard Schultz to kind of just, I was getting hot, getting in this, you know, and like, I got connected. I remember sitting 4 minutes before it. I'm like, I'm about to walk in here and I'm about to blow this dude's face off, and it's going to be a foundational thing. I walked in, we had a 15-minute meeting, 20-minute meeting, and nothing's happened. And I didn't feel like I had an off day. I felt like I gave it, but it didn't click. Whereas when I went to go see Jimmy Iovine for this meeting, I'm like, I'm gonna blow his face off. Within 3 minutes, he's like, you're next Simon Cowell, and he casted me in the Apple show, Planet of the Apps, with will.i.am, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jessica Alba. And if that show actually got seen, unfortunately, it was before all the OTT stuff and the way TV, like that would have been right, and that would have been one of the moments. So, you know, the reality is that,
wow.
you know, like I love that kind of. And then I'm trying to think of like something good where like, who'd I meet randomly? Like, I'm trying to think of a real logical thing. Well, you know, I took a meeting with the Jets president at a bagel store because he wanted to sell me a skybox. I told him about where the world was going. We became great friends. That's Matt Higgins, who's on Shark Tank, who's Steve Ross's right hand. That led to him leaving the Jets years later, going to Steve Ross and Dolphins. That became the gentleman who bought a piece of my company. And like that bagel meeting became a monster meeting for me. And I didn't know who Matt Higgins was going into it. So I love chance. I love momentum, and I love what starts momentum. That's where I just took this.
Yeah.
I agree more than any to remind everybody right now, say yes. You know, one thing that I hate about people that haven't achieved anything and people that have achieved everything, they overvalue their time. And it's a tricky one. If you haven't gotten there yet, people are like, Gary, I'm not doing that pro bono work. I should be compensated. I'm like, bro, your work's worth nothing. Like there's 700,000 video makers that I can tweet right now. Like, sorry, like when your work's not worth anything, like no humility. And then again, no humility. When people get fancy, I take so many small meetings. I do so many things like tea with Gary V in the morning during this COVID crisis to like just help. And once every 8,000 times, it helps me. I actually like losing more than winning. It speaks volumes to why I'm obsessed with the Jets and Knicks and completely have abandoned the Yankees and the Rangers after they won a championship. I like losing more.
Micro losing or macro losing?
Micro losing,
Right.
but everything is micro losing besides death or bankruptcy.
Like being the underdog?
Yep. Like I just don't give what you guys think. And that goes from you all the way up to my parents. That by recognizing that you guys don't have nor my parents has all the context. Nobody fully knows you. It's actually through empathy.
At what age was that like?
Early. Like I can't believe how now understanding a little bit more back to like being in your own cocoon, I can't believe the mentality I brought into high school. Mm-hmm. Like to navigate high school the way I did, which is like completely and utterly not affected by peer pressure in hindsight, is wild to me. That takes a level of like self-confidence at such an early age that I think I just understand so much more of what I am now really on that window, because that is such a tough spot. And that.
Do you attribute that to your parents and the work from a young age, or
yes.
Just your parents?
The DNA my parents gave me, clearly the way that my mother raised me, having to earn my keep, and then just like DNA, man, just like that voice that we all have. Like, I just always felt that I was better. And here's where it gets really good. But if the world showed me I wasn't, like I remember going through, this is actually interesting, I don't know if I've ever shared this. I remember vividly going through the ages of like 7 to like 16, being stunned anytime I didn't win in something. Like shocked. Like just could not believe that Rick was better at tennis, or John just beat me in one-on-one, or I wasn't the fastest in my class, or like just shocked. And you know, and I've been thinking about that lately because it sparked in me a few months ago. I'm like, wait a minute, that was weird. What was that? Because I just kind of remembered it. Like shock. I remember actually what seemed in my mind as a disappointing thing at the time, and now I look as a great thing. I remember thinking somewhere around 13, 14, 15, that I lost my expectation of always winning in everything every time. And I remember thinking like that wasn't good, but in hindsight, I think it was great, because the reality is I got into this place of complete and utter confidence, but being able to not come up with excuses if it didn't work out. Like watching people like lose and then blame the sun. Like literally, like I overheard it a couple of weeks ago somewhere. I was walking I'm on vacation. I overheard it. Like this kid lost to his cousin. It seemed to me they didn't look like brothers, and he was blaming the sun. And it took everything I had to not like roll in and be like, bro, I love you, but like you need to realize like the sun was there for him too. And I think a lot about that accountability. Like if you're coming up with excuses, like being super confident, filled with excuses when it doesn't work out is called delusion. So I feel great because I love process. A word that has been really running through my head quite a bit over the last couple of years is entitlement. Mainly because I have exploded on Instagram and I get 10,000 direct messages a week from kids who are wealthy, affluent, being totally taken care of, and they hate their parents for creating entitlement and they don't know how to get out of it. But they're making a lot of excuses. That's a different story. But what I realized is that same thing that a 19-year-old whose parents have paid for everything and she or he is realizing, wait a minute, I'm a zoo animal and I don't know how to live in the wild. I believe there's a level of entitlement that is rampant amongst the Fortune 500 or biggest companies in the world of thinking that they're entitled to the business. They make audacious and points of view on their competitive landscape. They say silly things like make razzes and jokes about emerging competitors who eventually become their biggest issues. And I've been thinking quite a bit about that. And I think it all leads to actually a very interesting place, which is ultimately both high net worth parents and executives of very big companies, unfortunately, are not consumer centric. Unfortunately, play within their B2B confines, score on different metrics than the actual end user that they're supposed to be deploying for. And so my luck, and that's what I'll call it, of DNA of only ever being consumer centric has led to the honor of sitting here and talking to you and having people pay attention and all the nice things that have happened to me. And it's fun because there's nothing more entrepreneurial or rogue or disruptive than actually caring about nothing in the middle but the end consumer, pandering to nothing, not awards, not the press, not the media, not the B2B environments, not the conferences, not the people that are fancy, just the end consumer, and building leverage there, which ultimately gives you leverage with all the things that I just mentioned that are in the middle. You know, giving is intoxicating once you get into it, but you can't give if you're not in a place of giving. And that doesn't mean money. That means happiness. And I think Ed, you, me, others, I'm really, really excited. I think the alpha male winner is starting to evolve. I don't think it means being a pushover, like some people get concerned that our culture is getting too woke on that. I think it means rounded in that, like, I want people to feel comfortable in their selfishness. I love saying, I'll do it right now. I want everybody to sign up for winetext.com if you buy wine. Now that's my dad's business, but that is like my family business. So I want people to promote their thing. I wanted people to buy K-Swiss. I want them to buy Empathy Wines. I want them to go to VaynerMedia and VaynerX.com and work with my companies. I want that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want people to disguise, like what happens. You get into this gratitude guilt frame where when you're saying something, you hedge it with like, but it's altruistic. I'm like, you can have both. You can be altruistic and give and be awesome and be selfish and have a boat and a house, millions of dollars. Like, it's all good. And by the way, you can also do whatever. But there is no balanced conversation right now. It's almost like you have to be foofy, give away everything, or completely rogue, I'm all about me. And the reality is everybody's in between. And I want to be great at both, right? Like bleeding out of my eyeballs till 3 a.m. this whole week, every day, and being exhausted, but knowing that I'm one of the 3 energies. There's 5 energies. Alan Tisch, Michael Rubin, the founder of it, and me, and then Fanatics' company and VaynerMedia's company. They're working right this second. That have helped in 5 days to raise $10 million. That's going to feed some kid in Mississippi, some elderly woman in Westchester. Like eat. Not to mention all the happiness that comes when you're the person that wins speaking role in Leo and you're just a normal person. And for months, you and your friends are just happy every day talking about it.
Yeah.
83 people in your world, there's so much good that can be done, both selfless and selfish.
In your view, how aware of are the average business leaders of the correlation between employee engagement and profitability?
Non-existent. Because CFOs are too literal and Excel, and 90%, if not 99%, are not deploying emotional intelligence above their financial intelligence, and they are spread basics. And
do we need new KPIs?
Yes.
How do we clarify this correlation? Because it is there, research shows it's there, you've seen it, others have seen it. Research oftentimes and reporting doesn't penetrate a cliche CFO. You know, no matter what you and I come and talk from personal experience. Somebody else comes from an academic point of view on this. Shows, dear CFO, you are wasting $4.9 million a year of people sitting there and crying and not working. And if you had better engagement, I know that to be true in my bones. In my bones, I know that a proper culture creates a scenario where people have better output in the time that they deploy. I know that as an intuitive human. But now let's have some empathy in the other direction. If you're the CFO of Ericsson and you have to report numbers, and you have to report numbers every 90 days, it gets very hard for you to make the investment. Let's play this out. Okay, so Rick and Susan hear us and they deploy, they're bought in, they believe in you and I. What happens next? Well, you have to start putting in money to put into programs. You have to put in money to put into human beings that rev up the culture. All of a sudden, we ask the CFO, who's looking every 90 days on a whim in their mind, because it's not mathematically quantitatable no matter what our reports show, they have to pour money into this for the hope that later it pays dividends. It's called investment.
I've heard. People don't invest. The way I deal with chaos and the way that I would deal in chaos if I was a upper middle leader in this team right now is realizing what's the alternative. You're in control. The reason chaos is easy for me is I know I'm in control. When a tornado or a hurricane or a virus or sales drop breaks out, I'm in control. Coronavirus, China sales are down, we're in control. We get to sit in a room and say, what are we gonna do? I love chaos. Like, if Mike Tyson's running at me and I'm a boxer, that chaos, this is why Holyfield beat him. You're in control. Yeah, it's not fun or scary or whatever, but you can duck. I'm most calm when there's the most chaos because I go into a place in my mind of like, what's the worst that can happen? What, am I gonna die? Oh no? Then business? Who gives a crap? Put it in perspective. Put it in perspective. Stop being scared. My ambition 10 years ago stays true today. I want to buy some of the most nostalgic brands that have ever existed when the next economy collapses. So when this economy finally collapses, I want to go buy Kit Kats, Bubblicious, K-Swiss, Ralph Lauren. I want to buy brands, and then I want to be the CEO of it. And what I knew then was I understood small businesses, I understood Silicon Valley, I didn't understand Fortune 500 businesses. But I wasn't gonna go get a job, so I decided to start the agency because at that point I realized marketing was my superpower. Hanging out with all those Silicon Valley titans, why was I invited to the dinner? Why were they listening to me? It's because they were great at tech, but I really understood. One of the biggest reasons, forget about the current way people view Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's deep understanding of human psyche was the number one reason we connected. I think I'm an extremely good marketer because I think this entire thing that we're at right now is an internal B2B ecosystem, and the only thing I pay attention to is the end consumer. I know so little about what's going on here. This is literally the first 3 years I was here, I only did this event. I didn't know anything else. You guys remember, Harriet just joined us to run comms from BBDO. She's incredible. I'm still asking her on the way here. She's like, we were finalist, what's it called? Shortlist. She's like, we were shortlisted for a bunch of stuff today. I'm like, I don't even know, I literally thought it was finalist. Like I still, Adam, yesterday we won a silver thing and I was like, what does that mean? Like I still am so deeply unaware of what's happening here, not out of audacity, not out of disrespect. I actually love coming here, the vibe, I love hanging with you guys. I love this. It's just that everything I think about is the consumer. It's the only thing that matters. And that's why I believe that, you know, and I'm humbled by some, you know, the most interesting or we're doing some of the most interesting things because we just see it different. We just see it different, and the way we see it is practical. So, I mean, the far majority of what you've already worked on, you would have never consumed. That's my aspiration to come to things like this. Actually have a conversation about what the hell's going on, right? Like, creativity is amazingly fun. I think that we have to be very thoughtful that somebody's paying us to make something happen. You know, I think there's a lot of audacity that seeps into this craft where it becomes about ideology and selfish behavior. I watch creatives and strategists make decisions all the time based on what they want to blow up a building. They want to meet John Legend. They want this joke to see the world. It has nothing to do with what the client needs and definitely nothing to do with does the end customer care. I do not like negativity. And so in my early years, since I started running companies right from the beginning, my historic vulnerability that I continue to work on and is far great in a better place than it used to be is in my unbelievable disdain for confrontation and negativity, I wasn't candorous enough and would surprise people when I would fire them. And also created a level of entitlement, which usually led to the firing because they weren't getting negative feedback, they were just getting positive reinforcement.
And then suddenly something happened.
And they became delusional. No, and unfortunately, it wasn't that suddenly something happened. For the last 3 years, they've always been bad at these 3 things. I just don't focus on negatives. I focus on positives. They don't hear anything about it. And then they get called into the meeting probably thinking they're about to get a raise because 4 weeks ago I gave them a high five about something they do well. And then I'm like, hey Jan, hey Rick, you know, we're gonna have to talk about you not being here. And they would be flabbergasted. And I would defend my actions to myself in my 20s and early 30s on they're delusional, how did they not know, couldn't they tell? But a lot of people don't deploy the self-awareness that I was gifted with. It's not, you know, and more importantly, employees always have other side, like everybody, there's always 2 sides to a story. So over the last 3 or 4 years, and I'll tell you that my brother AJ, who was 22 years old when he became my partner at VaynerMedia 10 years ago, he is far, you know, he's a good balance. My dad is overcritical and only focused on the negative. So I think I naturally was over positive, but then being in the same company with him and a father-son, I almost had to be 100% positive to offset 100% negative, and that's the truth. Who you're most upset about losing in front of?
What if it's literally everybody?
That's great. Then you need to start really thinking about creating behavior to make yourself lose more. You basically are in the same place that a slow maturing 11-year-old is who hasn't started swimming yet. The only answer to your question is to jump in the pool. If you were like my younger sister, I would tell you that everything you should do for the next 5 years are things that you're likely gonna lose at until it becomes so numb that it changes your relationship with losing. Hating to lose in the way that you're describing it is completely predicated on not being able to deal with other people's judgment. And that is a tough spot to be in. You know? You gotta reconcile that with, I'm probably the most competitive person I've ever met. Or just in the mix with the other people. So I'm trying to win. I don't want to lose. but I respect the game enough to accept it, and I weirdly get good tingles from it because it excites me to try again.
What is the number one driver of engagement in the workplace?
The ability to listen. The number one driver of engagement is the macro and then the individual employees that make up the company's ability to actually listen. I really...
So, cultivating our ability to listen
The
as
end.
employees, as managers, is a very important focus going forward for you and your organization.
It's the only thing I think about. Mm-hmm. If you think about just to create some levels of clarity here for everybody, the ability to engage and be engaged and things of that nature completely start with the seed of being heard. You know, somebody being heard is completely different than somebody who feels they're not heard.
That's also what research shows.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Good. That makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To be seen and to have the opportunity or possibility to influence
the outcome.
your situation so that you're not trapped.
Nothing makes me more excited than when a junior employee comes, gives a recommendation, and then 7 months later it actually becomes true, and they reach out to me and they never think it was them. Hey Gary, Sarah Thompson here. You know, we met 7 months ago. You know, just saw the announcement, or just saw this, or this just happened. You know, I'm sure it wasn't me, and you probably don't remember that I asked you, but I'm so glad it's happening. And then me on a flight at 1:30 in the morning, dear Sarah, it happened because you walked into my office, I heard you, I thought you might be right, I investigated, we did it, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. Evan, thank you so much for having a couple seconds and being able to tell the Believe Nation a little bit about Empathy Wines. It means a lot to me that you would take this valuable real estate and time on your channel to give me some love. It means a lot. It's just good karma points, and so you're awesome. Thank you. Believe Nation, if you're into wine at all, go to empathywines.com. My whole career's work was poured into producing a wine that rivaled $40 to $60 wine for 20 bucks a bottle. I'm just super excited about this subscription-based wine business. You can order 3, 6, or 12 bottles in subscription form, rosé, white, red. If you search on Instagram or Twitter, you will be blown away. People are literally like, I don't even like Gary Vee, but the wine's good. Super proud of the effort. Thanks, Evan, for the time. Wishing you guys all happy and healthy.
If you want another amazing Gary Vee video, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
If you're not complaining, well then I have no advice for you.
People will judge you for working too hard in your business and not spending time with your family. And people will judge you for not working hard enough in your business and spending too much time with your family.